Welcome, everyone. We are so excited to be with you today for one of SMA's fan favorite events, Multigenerational Panel. I'm Lisa Panarello. I'm the founder and CEO of Careers Advance and the Vice President, Program Director of SMA NJ, a very special chapter of SHRM dedicated to staffing and talent acquisition specialists. And I'm going to be your host today. Just two things before we get started. Our program is being recorded, so you'll receive it in a week or so to reinforce what you learned, catch anything you missed, and share it with colleagues. And secondly, just for audio quality and time constraints, we're asking that you keep your mic on mute. But please do drop questions in the chat box, and we'll do our best to get to it before we're done here. Our goal is that you walk away with interesting ideas that you can apply to recruiting and retaining top talent for your organization. So to kick things off, I'm honored to introduce Mike Hoare, SMA's president, and he's also a client partner and computer task group. Mike?
Thanks, Lisa. Hello, everybody. Really good to see a lot of regular faces and a lot of new faces. For anyone that doesn't know SMA well, we are the staffing and recruiting chapter of Society of Human Resource Management here in New Jersey. Run a lot of great content like this on a almost monthly basis. And this presentation in general is always one of my favorites. I think when it comes to diversity and inclusion, really understanding folks and where they're coming from is a really important aspect. And I know this always gives us a lot of insight on the different generations and how we can make sure they're happy in the workplace and how to attract them. So thanks so much, everybody, for attending, and I hope you enjoy it.
Well said. Thanks, Mike. All right. With that, let's introduce our four panelists. Representing our baby boomer generation is Mark Strano. Mark is a principal and lead consultant of Shift Leadership Development, LLC. It's a private coaching practice that he launched in 2016, focused on expanding the knowledge, skills, and perspectives of managers and emerging leaders. His corporate career spans 18 years in employee development and training with such firms as Alliance Funding, Washington Mutual, and Samsung. Mark has a master's in international trade and finance from Arizona State University and a bachelor's in linguistics, psychology, and computer science from the University of Rochester. Fun fact and impressive for me is he's trilingual. Next up, representing our Gen Xers is Wallace Gibbs. Wallace has dedicated his career to American Airlines in Fort Worth and Dallas, Texas. In the past 25 years, he's progressed through critical on-the-ground and leadership roles, including station agent, customer service manager, learning and development manager, and analyst of dangerous goods compliance. He currently serves as hazardous safety training specialist. Wallace has a bachelor's degree in history from Texas A&M University, and he holds a deep passion for aviation and the regulated environment. Next, representing our Gen Y group and hailing all the way from the West Coast is Sue Fain Town. Sue has been a government employee serving the public for more than 10 years. Currently, she's a policy analyst at San Francisco Health Plan. Prior, she spent 9 years with the Social Security Administration, advancing from claims specialist to security analyst. Sue has a master's degree in public administration, a BA in sociology from the University of California, and Lean Six Sigma training. And an interesting fact, Sue is passionate about transitioning into entrepreneurship and philanthropy. And then last but not least, representing our Gen Z population is LaShanae Scott. LaShanae is a 23-year-old Caribbean native residing in New Jersey. She earned her bachelor's degree in 2018 at Berkeley College, graduating as magna cum laude with honors, and an associate's degree in criminal justice, graduating summa cum laude. Get this, while currently working full-time as a commercial real estate paralegal with Romer Debus, LLP, LaShanae is pursuing a Juris Doctorate degree at New York School of Law. In her spare time, if she has any, she enjoys trying new restaurants and bars around New York City and spending quality time at home with her cat. Okay, with those introductions said, we want to get to know our panelists deeper. The world events have repeatedly shaped generations. And 2020 events hit us like no other, particularly COVID-19. It's caused the most significant disruption to workplaces and lives in decades. And how so? Well, we've curated 6 specific questions to find out. So this will be a jam-packed hour of learning. Let's get to it. First question, how has the pandemic impacted your professional and personal goals? We're going to start with you, Mark.
Sure. So affected my personal and professional life is pretty profound. And I have a pretty simple lifestyle compared to most people. So I can only imagine, with people who have, as caretakers, as parents, and complicated lifestyles, it's different for me than anybody else. But I'll say the impact is most felt in my perspective, expanded and changing perspectives, and in the changes themselves, physically, in the environment, socially, and in my activities, career-wise, transitioning literally in March last year to a position where I was fielding those concerns and questions of people in transition. And it went from who needs help on your resume to, oh my God, the barn's on fire. And tens of thousands of people needing guidance and help and information and support. So literally back then, my career just kind of exploded into a Zoom empowered world before everybody found the control button. So it's very pedestrian in some ways, but very profound in other ways. And fortunately, I found opportunities still to take on a couple contracts, short-term contracts, and a permanent position. So that's the main flavor of how it's been affected.
Making lemonade out of lemons, so to speak.
Yeah,
I appreciate that dual pedestrian and profound impact on your goals. Thanks for sharing that. Wallace, how has the pandemic impacted your professional and personal goals?
And I look back and, in 2019, in my particular industry, we were just going gangbusters, just expanding as much as we could, going around the world, looking at new continents to fly into. And then my last flight right before the pandemic, I was coming out of New York's LaGuardia Airport. And as a company employee, it would be, the world would have to disappear in order for us to get into like a first class cabin. And so, I wasn't paying attention to anything. And then the agent handed me a first class boarding pass. And this was on a Friday out of New York City, coming into Dallas Fort Worth. And I said, this is impossible. I said, I think you've made a mistake. And she goes, no, there just are no people on the plane. And that's when I realized the trouble that we were in. And so how has that affected me as we've condensed in size as a company? Things that, I had a very clear career path that I was on, and I had, this is the next position I'm going to move into. And that position disappeared. And then coworkers started disappearing. So it's created a certain instability where you're like, are we still, is my job going to be here in a year? What's going on? And so that's, how I have been affected both professionally and personally. It's created a little bit of instability in the workplace.
That's interesting. And that instability, I'm just getting a little bit of a flutter in my heart hearing that. It's sort of now, where does your mind go? So that's interesting.
Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that, Mark.
Yeah, something that, I've worked for American for, 26 years, and it's just been go, 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 everything. And then suddenly you're just like, wow.
Yeah.
And so.
Got to think differently about our next journey. Sue, what are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me here. I would say that personally, the pandemic has given me more time to focus on my hobbies and to tap into my creativity, because that's something that I was lacking of working in the healthcare plan. And it reduced a lot of distractions for me because, usually when you're working in person, there's a lot of distractions in social life. There's happy hours, events to attend to, but now that there's more time for myself and there's no commute, I get 2 hours back, and I'm able to focus on digital marketing, because that's something that I was interested in, to start like an e-commerce side hustle, because I wanted to focus on transitioning into entrepreneurship. And so personally, my goals personally, the pandemic has given me those added benefits. However, in my professional life, the pandemic has increased a lot of workload in the healthcare administration that I work in right now, because we really had to ensure that we're providing and continue to provide healthcare access to the Medi-Cal population in San Francisco. So we went from providing, having folks see their primary care physicians to transitioning to a telemedicine portal even. So professionally, the pandemic, I'm sure with everywhere else, it has increased our workloads for less pay, so to speak. But I'm just glad that I still have a job, unlike a lot of folks who probably were not in that kind of situation to have a stable job.
Yeah. Well, that's a great perspective. And I'm glad to hear that it affected you positively on the personal, giving you that time. That's a unique look at it, having to be able to be creative. And we'll see how you can translate that and to be creative into your next career position. Thanks for sharing that. LaShanae, how about you? What's a pandemic done for you in terms of your goals?
So thank you for having me. Professionally speaking, I think I owe a lot to the pandemic. It allowed me to kind of fast track my career, because I think when you're in this age group where, you're expected to be a fresh college graduate and you're entering the workforce, a lot of employers aren't really expecting you to be quote unquote good at your job. So I think during the pandemic, where we had, as you can imagine in commercial real estate, a massive increase in workload and a massive decrease in staff, that just kind of allowed me to prove my worth to the company and to prove my capabilities. And from there, I was able to get 2 promotions in 1 year. And so I do owe a lot to the pandemic in that regard, although it was, absolutely overwhelming. But it's just one of those things that you kind of have to take advantage of. And then personally speaking, I had a lot of time now because I no longer had to commute 2 hours into the city, which is what I used to do pre-pandemic. I was able to roll out of bed, start working at 7, stop working at 9, and also have time to study for the LSATs. And I think before the pandemic, I just kind of rushed in my law school applications and I was like, this is pretty much the best I can do. I don't have time to study, don't have time to retake the LSATs. I don't have time to pretty up my personal statement. And I had that entire year because the pandemic kind of silenced the world, so to speak. And so I had a lot of time to study. I ended up getting into 3 law schools, 5 scholarships. And so I think, fortunately for me, I don't have anything negative to say in that aspect when it came to lockdown. I made the most of it.
Wow, good for you. And gosh, you're putting me to shame. God bless you with all those accolades. Congratulations. And I think that was a good question to kind of start off, just to understand where everyone's frame of mind is for their work, their passions, and just the whole situation that they're living in from a professional, personal standpoint. Well, now considering that you're each still looking to the future, if you were to be considering your next step per se, what factors into your selection of a company when you are searching for a new job? So LaShanae, you're on the cusp of this new path and you just got several promotions. So if you're thinking about a new job or a new company, if you plan on leaving the practice that you're at, what factors into how you select your next job or your next employer?
So first and foremost for me is flexibility. And that's something that I've always sought out during my job interviews. I'm lucky enough to be with a company now that, I was very clear when I interviewed with them 3 years ago that I do have intentions of going to law school, which will mean, I'll give my best now and I'll work 12 to 15 hours a day. But once I start law school, you have to understand I'm working that exact 8 hours per day. And unfortunately, I just won't be able to overexert myself. And so I'm grateful for that. I also look for any opportunities for growth, right? Because as a fresh college graduate, when I started working with this firm, I applied for their legal assistant position, which I think was something suitable for someone with absolutely no experience. But 3 years in, now I'm a commercial real estate paralegal closing deals upwards of $38 million, that's something that I had to work towards. I can recall working for an even larger firm prior to this, where it was clear after a year that this is all I was going to be, a file clerk. There was absolutely no opportunity for growth. And so those are my two biggest things when I'm looking for new opportunities.
Flexibility and growth, and good for you for being open about your expectations and laying that on the line and just getting that out there. Thanks. Sue, how about you? What factors are you going to be looking for in your next role or company?
Yeah, Lisa. So I think for me, having always been in the public sector and even obtaining a master's in public administration, as you can tell, I'm a dedicated public servant. So for me, it's all about the company's mission, right? Whether it's a government job or a private company, it's about the mission. Do I believe in its mission that aligns with my personal values? And second is the company culture. Is this the kind of culture where I can see myself grow into? Is this the culture that is collaborative? That's not always top-down management approach. And third, I look like Shanae, I also look into upward mobility and growth. So in the next 5 years, could I see myself helping the company or the organization grow, as well as can that company also help me grow as a person? So is there that, give and take? And I would say those three factors, its mission, company culture, and growth are three things that are most valuable to me.
Very clear. And companies have to do a lot to attract talent like all of you in terms of that cultural goal and how that's fitting in with what you're looking for, and also living up to their mission. Wallace, where you are in your career right now, I mean, I know you've been with American Airlines for 25 years, so perhaps you may not be looking for a new company, or I don't know, or what you're looking for in your next role. So what factors do you consider in your next step?
Oh, I think you're on mute, Wallace.
Thank you, Flora.
Thank you so much, because I do that during internal meetings too, and I'm just like blah blah blah, and then there's a mute button. So I look for stability. Number one, something that I can get into and have the confidence that this position's going to be there for a while. As evidenced, I've enjoyed my career with American Airlines, and believe it or not, if I threw a rock, I would have to really throw it far to hit somebody with less seniority than me. It's a very high senior company. People are very happy working here. I've got 35 years to the one side of me, and I've got 40 years to the other side of me. And we even had an employee in New York that worked 75 years with American. And so I like that aspect, something that's very stable like that. I like the ability to grow. If I want to promote and I want to do something different, I like having that ability as well. That's something that's very attractive to me. And then being surrounded by a good team, people that like what they're doing, like coming into work, and like being on the team and pushing the team forward. So stability, the ability to grow, and good teamwork are my number one, or my top three characteristics.
So the next time, because you were saying earlier that, gee, you're looking at positions due to COVID that have gone away. So that stability, next time you're having a conversation with your senior, whoever your report is if they're looking to put you into a new position, well, what's the outlook of this role? Is it going to be here in the next 5 years? And I'm pretty impressed that as a Gen Xer, that you want growth, because you don't necessarily, I don't hear that all the time from folks that are heading into that next phase. So I'm glad to hear that. And last but not least, Mark, what's going to factor into your next choice, company or job?
Sure. Yeah, it's consistent with the other answers we just heard, and putting quotes around the word stability, just to be able to relax into that. But it's just day to day. I came into work today, and what does tomorrow hold? Like the sun's going to come up. and I've got a job until I don't, and you get that note where they say we're changing directions. But as I look to the future, as we're all looking to the future, for me personally, selfishly, I look for that stimulation and creativity and the freedom, that flexibility that Lashane mentioned, and the collaboration that Sue just mentioned, to create something like we're doing this together. We're aligned and like together and moving forward. And that the company too, their decisions, their actions, their persona out there is consistent with that too. Not just like a cliche, but this future focus kind of thing. How is that unknown, or what we can see on the horizon barely, or just around the corner that's hidden? Are we prepared? And from my desk, in training and development, making sure that people are able and ready and prepared to learn anew, learn, unlearn, and relearn, as I just heard this morning in another presentation. But that's the exciting part. The instability is kind of a little stimulating, but to be able to relax into what you're doing and the people around you and this mission that we're all doing this together and moving ahead, is really what I'm looking forward to.
Great. Yeah, the collaboration and creativity, I'm hearing that quite often. It seems that more and more people really do like to work with people. So enjoying your coworkers is a big piece for you. So we've gotten really personal here as to what you want. Now we're going to take it even a little bit more personal. So we know a little bit about your factors in choosing a company and a job. So let's look at the perks and benefits. So this may be part of your selection process. What's important to you? What are you looking for when you're ready to sign that dotted line? Sue, perks, benefits, what do you want?
Yeah, so for me, I like to consider the entire employee benefit package. That includes, retirement plans, whether or not the employee is able to match your retirement plan, covered health insurance benefits. Because for me, having worked in the government sector, my pay is not as, competitive as going into a private sector. However, they are stable and they do offer employee matching. So for me, when I made the transition from a federal agency to a smaller local entity that I work for right now, I looked for what their retirement package was, because there's Social Security retirement benefits, and then working for a local, there's also CalPERS, right? Like what CalPERS pension that a lot of teachers get, where they don't tax you Social Security, but you could get CalPERS if you're vested after 5 years. So for me, it's really about, I feel like right now I'm collecting different retirement packages for the long term of getting those benefits later on. So for me, it's really about looking at the entire benefit package and not just what the immediate pay is, because in the private sector, they could pay you higher, but you might not get 401 matching plan. And so it's just considering that the whole package.
Right, laying it out on the line, getting that magnifying glassing out and reading the fine print, looking to that future piece. So that's a huge benefit to consider. Thanks for that. Wallace, how about you? Your stage of life and work, what perks and benefits do you look for?
I could echo what Sue said. Salary compensation is the key driver for me. At my age, with kids in college and things like that, that's very important. Vacation, sick time are also very important to me, as well as health insurance. What is your insurance plan like? And then a retirement plan, and like Sue said, do you match my 401k? How much do you match it? How much am I able to give into it? And so those are my key drivers. I mean, I could almost echo what Sue said, with the exception of the government, packages and things.
I appreciate that you opened up the whole vacation and the sick days and the personal days. You all work so hard, and you earned the right to have those days off and to relax and really unplug. I think some countries in Europe have it right. Some countries actually have all of August off. I don't know. I think we need to relook at our vacation packages here in the West. Mark, how about you? What benefits and perks get you excited?
Yeah, that's bumping up against the cultural thing, right? Could we even do that? Would I be comfortable taking August off, and returning? I don't even know what that would be like. But
Good point.
so that's actually, with the health benefits and the retirement considerations in the background, it's kind of like that's how we're doing it. It's just how is this company doing it, and having that be okay. Just accepting that and have that in the background. But back to the time, for me, I've been the brunt of office jokes. Mark, turn the lights off when you leave. Being a one-person function for many, many years in different places, responsible for everything from soup to nuts, the whole thing, in delivering my responsibilities of training and development again. Depending on your style, depending on the activity, still having time within the job to get away, to do my own thing or focus on my own work, or being with people, and that's how I recharge, is being among people, and that's where I refresh, recharge. So depending on that scale, having that freedom to go away and then come back to the work, full of energy and ready for what's next, whatever the plan is. And I also joke with the young people in my life, that sometimes I look at it and I think, have I actually earned more vacation time than you've been at work? So putting that in perspective too, like how much vacation time do I need, or would I take, really? Talking about that August thing again. So I think that it's the time that's really valuable, and away from work, that is to recharge and refresh, but to be at work and have that flexibility of time to do what's needed, whether by yourself or collaborating with a team.
Mark, you brought up another side of this. You're the employer. You have to step out and figure out what benefits that you want, that you have to set. So you've got to, really come out of the employer mode and speak for yourself. So you have to set that up for yourself. So that's a pretty interesting task for you to take on. And Lashane, last but not least on this question, what are you looking for? Perks, benefits?
So, I obviously look for the retirement benefits, vacation package, all that good stuff. But for me, to be honest, I look at the number that they're giving, just show me the money. Because I think at this stage in my career, I unfortunately have to battle with employers who perhaps just look at the fact that I'm 23 years old, probably don't have a family. They're assuming I don't have responsibilities, which is not the case. Right? Law school is expensive. My life is expensive. I work in the city. I have to travel, so on and so forth. And so for me, I put a value on my worth because I know what I can contribute to a company. I've done the job of 3 people before, even during the pandemic. I juggled the positions of 3 to 4 people. I've supervised the department. And so I think as young people sometimes, or people with 1 to 5 years experience, you sometimes feel like, sometimes let me just settle for whatever it is that they're offering because maybe that's what I'm worth. And I just think that most of the time that's not the case. And of course, I also do heavy research on whatever firm it is that I'm looking into, because I don't just want to go through the motions. I kind of want to work with a firm that either has perspective for growth, or I've seen where their attorneys have kind of uplifted some of their other employees. So even with my firm in particular, I'm working with people who have either gone through law school, had the same position that I have now. And so that kind of just gives me hope. Like, yes, they are flexible. They're not just saying it because all the employers now are saying that they're flexible. And so I have a job where we don't necessarily have work hours. It's just get the job done. And so that's what I like to see.
So recapping, we've got retirement plan, which including insurance, salary, time, which comes into form of vacation time and sick time and all that. And then let's be open here, money. It makes the world go around. So those are the perks and benefits that our panelists are looking for. Now let's sort of take us in work. You're at your job every day. You're talking about being overloaded because of what the pandemic has done and shifting everyone's roles and responsibilities around, and companies are struggling to move forward. So what keeps you motivated and engaged at work? when you're the throes of it all, what's going to keep you going? Wallace, what keeps you engaged every day at work?
I like clear direction. What is the goal? That keeps me, and that way I know what to do, when to do it, how to do it. So that's the number one. I like the ability to work independently. You hired me for a reason. Trust me to do the job. And if I am straying, come in and correct me. But I like that ability to work independently. I do not need to be micromanaged. So that's one of the motivating things. And then again, it goes back to what I said earlier with a team. I love the backup from a team. If you need help or you get stuck on something, you've got somebody to fall back on to help you get the job done. And so that's it. Just when I'm hired, you hired me for a reason. Let me just run, but be there to support me if I need help.
Gotta trust you to do what you're hired to do. I like
Exactly.
the direction too. Knowing the goal keeps you focused on the prize. Great.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Sue, how about you? In the world, especially in the government sector here, what's keeping you engaged in the work that you do?
Sure. So in my progressive years at Social Security, from working in a local office where I was interviewing claimants one-on-one, and then moving into progressive roles where I was at the regional office overseeing 7 different states and working behind the scene to process claims and recommend policy updates and changes. It really took away that drive from me when I didn't have that face-to-face interaction anymore with the public that I was serving. So what I realized kept me motivated was to engage with my coworkers and with the public. So I got involved in Sunshine Club at work to help host, baby showers, events, to volunteer. So I really took active roles to lead volunteering activities for community events. Like I fundraised over $2 grand for a walk to end Alzheimer's disease. And even during the pandemic, I also fundraised to assist with the efforts in helping the Burmese people, because my origin is Myanmar. And so a lot of the people there, if you haven't heard, is going through the military are suffering from the atrocities of the military takeover. And so I, even during the pandemic, I engaged people that would be interested in donating. And for me, it's always about giving back and volunteering at that grassroots level. And so whenever I can find opportunities to engage in that aspect, I get involved.
That's wonderful. It's putting all of your energies to a different passion, and then you bring that back into the work day that you do, kind of refuels you. Like to hear that. Lashane, how about you? What gets you going at work? What makes you do all the extra work and the studying that you do? What keeps you in it?
So this one was a little bit tough for me. In my line of work, the clients almost never say thank you. You don't get a pat on your back for closing, one of the biggest deals in the year. Everyone gets their money and everyone is gone. So I think for me, probably just reflecting on my growth during the time that I've been working with the firm, just being able to power through litigation documents that maybe during the first year I would have not known what to do with these. I think that keeps me motivated. Also, just the fact that I work well under pressure. I think when business is good for us, and that kind of keeps me going, because I'll share a quick story with you. When I first started working with the firm, for about the first 3 weeks, it was just very slow. No one wanted to trust me with anything. Granted, I was only 20 years old and I was fresh out of college, but no one wanted to trust me with anything. And so I had a meeting with my boss and I said, I was very clear when during the interview, I told you I wanted to grow with the company. I'm looking to go to law school. I'm looking to learn from people. No one wants to show me anything. So if this is how it's going to be, I'll just walk right out the door. You let me know. And he actually said that he appreciated that conversation that we had. 3 months in, he threw me into a closing and he was like, you said you wanted to learn, there you go, ask questions. And that's how it started. And so, yeah, working under pressure, that keeps me motivated, keeps me engaged. I like to feel like I'm doing work.
Well, you're in the field for pressure for sure, and you're proving that you can be the outspoken lawyer that you need to be to succeed. And I really like that you address the part that it's sort of a no thanks job. You're not getting those pats on the back. So how do you account for that? Is reflect on your own success so you don't lose sight, and you're thanking yourself for the good job that you've done. So that's a unique approach to getting the thanks that you're not getting from the clients. Mark, what keeps you? This new, because you've talked about how your work has changed, especially from the virtual side, and what clients are coming to you for. So what keeps you motivated to do what you do?
Yeah, so that's a very significant part of my job, is this, not just for my own motivation, but to engage the employees. Then they leave the event or this, the meeting or the training that we've had, and they apply. They have something new and significant, practical that they can put to their job or with their team. And then again, everybody moves forward, maybe faster or better or different. So for me, it's the connecting and the opportunity, whether it's in an event or in the after effect of an event, like the coming together on a webinar or in a classroom, or just an individual conversation, and connecting people with themselves, like a truer sense of who I am and what am I up to and heading into, what am I up for, my aspirations, and then connecting people with ideas, like possibly new ways or new perspectives or new understanding that they didn't have before our interaction or the coming together, and then the opportunities. So the understanding and the new ideas. Then what can we do with this? And what is unseen, or what can create that's unexpected, which is by laying the tracks before the train as we're progressing, kind of building the plane as we're flying. That kind of activity and opportunity or possibility is what really keeps me, engaged and energized at my work. Is that kind of indirect and watching and seeing people in the subsequent, time, and how they perform in projects, and hearing of their successes. Hoping that I had some influence in there, or at least give them the opportunity to explore that themselves and discover, and then move upward and forward.
I kind of think I got a little bit of all of you, but the connecting with the people and to sort of generating ideas. What can we do that's new? How can we disrupt the status quo? And then that other piece of, I do love to watch people grow. And for you to sit back and watch others around you do what they want to do and achieve, I can sense why that keeps you engaged. Interesting. Well, now let's look at deeper into what you bring to the table at work. So in your generation, just sort of, and using your phrase there, Lashane, and doing some self-reflection, what are the core skills that you bring to the workplace that really make you an asset to your firm, your organization, your clients, whoever you're working with? And then maybe what are one or two limitations that kind of maybe are stopping you from either being the best you or being effective, or just because of today's workplace, there's a lot of different needs and wants out of the company. So look at both sides of you. What are your, maybe your top 2 or 3 core skills, maybe one particular limitation that you might work on to succeed in today's workplace? Let's get back to our youngest member of our panel, Lashane. Core skill, key limitation.
So I think for me, 3 biggest skills: time management, ability to prioritize. I think that's a main one because everything I do is apparently urgent. You could have 60 deals and everyone wants something done today. And so I think just being able to weed through what really is urgent. I mean, for some people, they might need something shortly, and shortly could be an hour, shortly could be next week. And so I think just being able, and I think that just comes with like experience. Like you don't know that first day on the job, which kind of ties into my limitation, I would say. It's just experience. And there's a lot of times I've had conversations with the partner and I'll say, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that this is something that needed to get done, or it wasn't that urgent. And he'll say, there's nothing you could have done. This is just something that you'll learn over time. So I'd say that's my biggest limitation at this point. Experience, and strengths would just be time management, organizing, and ability to prioritize. Yeah.
Well, that experience is definitely coming, so be patient with that. Mark, 1 or 2 core skills that makes you a real asset in what you do, and maybe is there one limitation or something that you may need to work on?
Sure, yeah, and the strongest part, again, goes back to that connecting people and ideas and opportunities, but listening, and with a fine distinction, listening and then hearing, and be able to not just the key point that someone's trying to deliver, but what's going on around that or behind that, along with that, that might be invisible or unperceived yet. And working that into the conversation, or the sense of sorting things out and having a new idea or clarity, and then be able to move forward with something where you were stuck. So that's that patience, I think, and that listening and hearing skill goes a long way in individual conversations, as well as with a group of 10 people or 100 people in a room. Being able to read that, and I think they sense that too, and they appreciate the results of that too. I think the limitation, if it's that, it's more of an irony, I'll say, is that all these years being the one that used to pull the software, the new software, out of the box, out of the shrink wrap, and test it and apply it, and show the company how we can use this new information, this new technology. Today, with so many, the new software, the latest technology, and so forth, to our advantage. But there's so many, a proliferation of products that are out there and services, that it always seems like there's a simpler way than using that. And if we come back down away from that, there's still another way, a simpler way, maybe with limited technology or sans technology, not even using the technology, but all understanding and using the same tools, will bring us back to what the advantage of that technology is. So it's I think instead of getting wrapped up and run away with the new technologies, to really understand it and utilize it. And I find myself challenged by that, of resenting it a little bit, like having to go through those machinations, but I'll tie it up there.
Well, humbled by you admitting that. That's one of my limitations too. And I'm working on my COVID is helping me actually become more patient with allowing myself to learn technology in order to be more efficient and better at what I do. So I appreciate you sharing that. Wallace, 1 or 2 core skills that make you a tremendous asset at work, and maybe one limitation?
I think for me, it would be my instructional facilitation skills. I have good team building skills and collaboration, bringing people together. In the position that I sit in, I can see I interact with different parts of the company, and people will come to me and ask something. I'll go, well, you need to go here, or we need to get these groups together. So those are my skill set. I know you said 2, but that was 3. And some of I echo what Mark was saying, with the technology part there, with the COVID pandemic coming up, it just seems like, there have been so many different programs, and here's a new way of doing this, to try and survive. And it can become very overwhelming, like for us, we suddenly started using Teams when we had been using WebEx, and then we were using another program and Zoom and and trying to keep up with all those, and where the mute button is and the unmute button is on all of these is one of the frustrations or the limitations, I think, today. I also find it intriguing, when we're having to deliver some of the training virtually, and people say that, oh yeah, great. And for some aspects of training that works great. For others, I see people, just in my workspace, just from where I'm sitting, I can see about 100 people, and sometimes when we're all together on a call, half the people are in their email, half the people are on their cell phones, while the meeting's going. And so that's one of the limitations I find very frustrating today. It's very easy to get distracted, in the virtual training environment. And so there you have it.
Well, you're certainly doing a good job today, not being distracted by what's around you. So I think you're really working through that limitation quite well. Mark.
You know what,
Wallace.
Lisa, because I'm terrified of being in front of people, because very rarely do I ever turn on my video. Very rarely. And so, and I'm just trying to pay attention and not scratch my ear or anything weird like that.
Well, you're putting your learning skills to good use there. It's showing up well. Thanks. Sue, how about you? Any particular skill that you really shine on at work, and anything that you're looking to work on?
Thanks, Lisa. I would say some of my core skills are being an impactful community leader, recognizing and finding ways to alleviate social issues, because that's something I study as a sociologist, and being that catalyst of change in organization for workforces. So I like to bring diversity, equity, inclusivity into the workforce with my own voice and advocacy efforts for marginalized communities, and always challenging the status quo. And with that, one of the limits that I've noticed in today's workforce, and having worked from a federal agency to now a local government agency, I've noticed, and being involved in work groups as well, I've noticed there's a lot of hurdles for Asian Americans to get promoted into management positions, because many are in analyst roles, and there's not proportional promotional level for Asian Americans to get into management roles. So I've been involved in several work groups, and even now in the DEI community at my current job. You know, I want to address being able to recognize, so that we can help overcome the stereotypes and glass ceilings for young Asian professionals, especially, because often we're stereotyped as model minority. So the expectation is that you work 2 times more, and maybe our culture is that, you know, we're too humble, we don't toot our own horn, we don't self-advocate. Maybe those are things that we need to address ourselves so that we're heard more, right? So I think these are some things that I see in today's workforce based on statistics and coming from a government agency, and these are limitations that I hope to address with my core skill.
So taking your personal skills in order to address a more broad limitation in that, and working on that self-advocacy without having to beat your chest and saying I'm great, but in order to get heard and get those opportunities.
Exactly.
Well, I've got one more question in our line of questions for today. And I also had one question that I was sent by one of our attendees that couldn't come in today. So I'm hoping to get to that. This last question is looking to the future here. How are you all building your future wealth, or even creating passive income? I know you mentioned about the whole retirement word that came up earlier on, that retirement package. So what are you doing for yourself to create that future wealth, whether passively or actively? So we're going to start in the order that we started with. Mark, how are you doing it?
Sure, thanks. And so with all these skills and all this experience that I bring to the game, I just keep watching what's going on out there, what's new, what's novel, what are other people doing. And you know, that game of double dutch, that jump rope game, waiting for my moment to jump in, like when is my turn, having that brave moment to bring my unique skills, my different ideas, you know, feeling like it's time, or maybe these are the people, or let me test the waters and see if this is, you know, the time and the place to launch something or collaborate and create something with other people. I think a bulk of my attention and energy is spent in being ready and informed, and again, skilled up to be able to join those conversations. And I've collaborated on a ton of projects, and it's very satisfying, and hoping to make that lucrative, hoping to make that financially satisfying as well.
So staying informed in order to make a calculated risk when you're going to jump in and start creating that new collaboration that's going to generate more revenue.
That's a lot
Excellent.
of it, yeah.
Wallace, how about you? How are you building that next level wealth for yourself?
My wife and I, we go through the 401k. Is that what you're talking? Things like that?
It
Lisa?
could be anything how you consider wealth, and 401k is certainly one pieces of that puzzle from the company offering perspective. Yep.
Okay, well, we do our best to max out the 401k, and then the company matches up to a certain percentage of that. So for physical wealth, that is what we're doing. And then my wife has a trader's license, and so she'll go in and buy stocks every once in a while. We have some IRAs. Passive income. Not a lot of passive income. There are some dreams that I have to do, and we'll see if those come to fruition a little bit later on. A friend of mine here at work has been encouraging me to do a podcast because I love to write. Just kind of observe, in my life, and just do stories. And so I'd love to do that and get that running. But as LaShanae pointed out, you just work, and when she said she gets up at 7 o'clock in the morning and works until 9 o'clock at night, I'm like, holy moly. So anyway, that's what I'm doing for income in the future.
So two sides of the coin I'm hearing. So maxing out that 401k, leveraging all that you can value from your work in the daytime, and then seeing maybe if you couldn't possibly do something a little bit entrepreneurial, kind of like Mark, waiting for that unique opportunity to make your own income on the side. And
yes, and jokingly, I always say jokingly to my kids, I have paid for your education, and the reason for that is if I need a place to live, there it is. That's the payback.
I'm coming to your house next.
Right? Exactly.
Sue, what's your strategy for building your wealth?
I would say that the biggest asset for me was to own my own house, and then using that line of equity from my house to invest in stocks and bonds, even investing in cryptocurrency because I believe in it, and using 401k to have dividends that can give me passive income in the long run, because those compounded interest, I think, would be something I could use in the future. And as far as passive income goes, I would eventually like to write a book about something that I'm interested in. I'm still figuring that out, and help maybe that could give me some loyalty for passive income. So just being creative and definitely looking into creating more streams of passive income for sure.
You got two sides of your brain working there, practical with the 401k and using that to invest, your creative side, which is the cryptocurrency and getting into that high tech aspects. And then I'm encouraging you to write that book. I will read it.
Oh, thank you.
LaShanae, end us on this question here. What are you doing? Because you are the woman on the youngest on this panel. So you're looking to your future. How are you building your wealth?
I think now biggest thing for me is just getting through law school, because that's a $200,000 investment, and so I don't reap the benefits until I finish. And I've also started a small business in Jamaica with my mom. My entire family is there, and so kind of want to keep some line of business there and have income coming through there. Also hoping to invest in a couple of properties in Jamaica. So that's something I'm looking into, but things are moving a bit slow now because I have my 9 to 5 and my 6 to 10, which is class. So slowly but surely, just trying to establish at least 3 to 4 streams of passive income.
Sounds like each of you have that little bit of an entrepreneurial gene just coming forward there. And I hear that a lot in today's world. So I'm excited for all that to happen, to come to fruition for all of you. And you've answered some of these questions so deeply and so specifically, and I appreciate that so much. I actually have one question that was sent to me via email from one of our board members who couldn't attend today. So I wanted to kind of throw this out to you in our last 5 minutes. And this might be a little heavy. Since March of 2020, have you noticed any generational differences in how your colleagues at work respond or behave through this whole COVID? Have you seen any sort of generational differences? Let's end off on that. LaShanae, how about you?
first thing that came to my mind, I think, was what Wallace touched on, which was just the ability to kind of adjust to the new technologies that came in. I'm the youngest person on my team, and so for me, it was kind of easy to just navigate through Zoom or to even assist with setting up conference calls and stuff like that. And I think some of the other generations struggled with that for a bit. It just took a little bit of time for them to catch up. But I don't think, other than that, there were any serious differences with how everyone was adjusting. Because I think, we all had a fear for our lives. No one wanted to leave the house, whether you were young or old. Some people had underlying issues. I know for me personally, I have perfect health, knock on wood, and thank God. But I never left my house. I was ordering in. I never wanted to even go to the door to the FedEx person. And so I think we were kind of, for the first time in a long time, humanity kind of felt the same. I think so. I would say just struggling with technological differences. That's one thing that I saw.
Well, thank you for that perspective. Mark, had you seen any generational differences in people's behaviors or communication?
Yeah, I think in the mainstream, in the media, and then personal experiences too, I think everything was so intense and threatened in many different ways. There was a lot of division and us and them, finger pointing and problems and troubles and stuff like that. At the same time, I think having separated all that, it gave people a big opportunity to recognize that that's what's happening, because it's so prominent, so prevalent, to put it back together, like to understand and see that I was doing that. For each of us, I personally have been doing that, to what degree and where and when, unbeknownst to me, blindly. And then, as it occurs again, then to be conscious of it and be able to mend or blend or, bring that together. So it was an opportunity, kind of a mixed blessing, to have that thrust in our face and so inflamed, but then the opportunity to really put it back together, kind of bring it together.
Wow, interesting. Yeah, so all the divisiveness, and yet starting to figure out how to come together.
A new equilibrium kind of a thing.
Yeah. Wallace, in your company there, had you seen considerable differences generation-wise in how people were reacting together or doing their work together?
Not besides the technological aspect of things, not a lot. It's and again, I say it was kind of frustrating when you would get new programs and things thrown your direction. And one time I said, okay, everybody has to stop. I have no idea what we're doing here with blah blah blah. And so that was one of the frustrating things. And again, and I don't even blame it on generations. I think it's different learning styles and how people are, because the person that is the most technologically advanced in my department is my age, and she just embraces change. And I am like, I like it like it is, and she's like, no, here's a better way of doing it. And so that's one of the things. Another thing that coming from my perspective, sometimes it's nice when you can tell somebody that's, because now people are my kids' age coming into the work environment, and you're like, you know what? It may be bad now. It will get better. These go in cycles. Everything goes in cycles. When I was your age, it was the 80s, and we were going through a huge recession in the United States. And then things pop back and it gets better. And so,
yeah, it seems every generation has their similarities, but then it comes down to the individual and how they are going to thrive and survive and just deal with the change that's happening. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right, Sue, end us off here. Any particular generational differences that you've noticed since COVID?
Aside from what everyone else mentioned, from technology to transitioning and all the political, the news threats that you hear, I would just add that I think what I noticed in generational difference in responding to this pandemic with my workforce, at least, is how the management team that's more I would say, older adults, how they decide they want to deal with the occurrence of meetings that we would want during this work from home situation. So I think we had to sort of tweak how micromanagement you want to be at one level, and at the same time use the tools that you have to allow workers to have the downtime to do desk work that they need to do. So I think that balance needed to be worked out together between the younger and older generation, because for younger generation, I feel like we can be reached via phone, Skype messaging. Like I felt like that, and we didn't want to be micromanaged at the same time, so that we didn't want to have like day-to-day huddles every day for 1 hour to talk about what when you need that time to work on real issues, not to just chit chat all the time. So I think that balance had to be there, because but once we were able to have team meetings on a weekly basis and a smaller group huddles on every other basis, we were able to build trust, build team rapport, and have that moral raised as well during this time of uncertainty. So just adjusting to how many video conferences you want to have doing the work from home environment really is something that I noticed.
Something that managers and leaders and emerging leaders need to consider in order to really keep that workforce engaged and balancing the life. Wow, I tell you, this has been a great.
Hey, Lisa.
Yes.
I'm glad Sue said that, because that was happening, I think, at our company too, where you just sit here and you're like, wait, we're going to do a conference call for an hour every day. This is babysitting. Yeah. And it goes back to that trust factor. Are you trusting that you hired me to do the job? But it was an adjustment for everybody, because when you send the entire workforce home. For the first time, what do you do? And so and we all adjusted, and I think that sometimes you just have to say, hey, you got to cut some of this out, because you're killing me. Killing me.
Well, you've all given us such great food for thought. It's been exciting to just hear your perspective, what's going on at your workplace, and how you've been approaching it, and what you're thinking about in the future. I really don't want this conversation to end. I can't believe how fast this hour went. So I think all of you on the call here, take note of our panelists, get their names down, connect with them. They may be your next hire or your next connection for your next great hire, because they certainly gave us some great insights to share and leverage. So before we close though, thank you so much, panelists, for your time, your energy, and your personal insights today. Everyone on the call, mark your calendars for SMA's next virtual event. On October 13th, we're going to have our new partner, Best Buddies of New Jersey. They're going to share how recruiters and talent acquisition specialists can help build a truly inclusive workplace with a most precious population, people with intellectual and development disabilities. So beyond generational expertise, we need to bring the IDD into our workforce. So don't miss that. And then finally, I just thank you all for participating and sharing today. Let's continue to network. So follow SMA on Facebook and LinkedIn. Encourage colleagues to join our chapter, yourself included, our panelists, and keep sending us your ideas and questions on how we can continue to support your journey. That's all for today, folks. Enjoy the fall weather.